Thank you for tuning in to 26 Sports. It's your host, Michael Reza, and I'm on again today with another special and great and excellent episode. As today we have one of women's boxing and just boxing purest, most beautiful and nicest and intelligent minds that we have here, the great Cynthia Conte. How you doing today, Cynthia?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I apologize. I just got out of the gym, so I look like a slob kebab. And I told you earlier, I do not like to do interviews in the car, so I apologize. But I'm like, I got to get on, and my baby's sleeping at home, so my babysitter will kill me if I wake the baby up by me, you know, because I get very enthusiastic when we talk about boxing. So I'll
No
just do
problem.
it in my car.
No problem at all. So, well, let's talk about that first. Let's talk about this weekend's fights. We have two major cards, and being that it's the most historic women's matchup in the history of women's boxing, let's start with that one. What are
hmm
your thoughts on Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano?
Just watching the weigh-ins today, it gave me the chills. And
Yeah,
I know damn well it gave a lot of people chills. We had the Game of Thrones soundtrack playing in the background, the face off, the it was so proper that it was a death stare. And to see something like that ever done at MSG, it's historical. Never has there ever been two females to basically sell out MSG
yeah,
to headline the card and two undisputed fights on the
yep.
card. Also,
French
Franchon
on,
Dezern, Franchon Cruz Dezern, and Sedurus.
yep,
So for that alone to be on the card, it's history has been made, and
yeah,
history is continuing to be made, and it just goes to show you that women. I mean, people are interested in women's boxing as long as
definitely.
they're very competitive fights, and promoters put them on.
Yep, and this fight for me. I had been calling for it. I've been wanting to see it. Katie Taylor and Amanda.
Yeah,
I'd been wanting to see it for at least 2 years, maybe. That I had
yeah.
asked for it, and now that it's happening, I'm excited. I'm a fan of both. I've been watching Amanda for years and years and years. Since she was fighting on the little club shows. With
hmm
people who you had to be a hardcore fan to know who she was. So I've been watching
Yeah.
since back then. And Katie, I mean, she's got the decorated amateur background, did all these things, and has become a great pro. But this is the toughest fight for her and for Amanda. And I'm excited because, yeah, as you said, if they make the fights that people want to see, women or men, they're going to come out. And the sold out MSG, they had to open up, I believe, the third level for it. So I can't wait.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for this
That's
at all.
good. And you know what? And like you said, it took we've been wanting this fight because that's the fight that had to happen.
Yeah.
It had to. And I mean, it's crazy to say if Jake Paul did not step into the picture and
Yeah.
promote Amanda Serrano and demand that they get paid what they're worth, then honestly, this fight would have never happened. It would have
Exactly.
been put on the back burner, and Katie Taylor would be fighting other people in different divisions or her mandatories, and Amanda would be doing the same thing for less pay. And so now it's
Yeah.
like these women have got to get paid just like men. They do the same damn thing in the gym.
Yeah.
They get paid. They get hit. They train. They sacrifice. So why not get paid the same amount? So this is just really a stepping stone for women's boxing and in boxing in general to show
Yeah.
like there are good fights that can happen. And this one, it's a really everyone I've even asked, all the females, even the males, and I know you, it's a 50-50
Yeah.
fight. I can't go like if they say Amanda Serrano, she's the knockout artist. Katie Taylor, will she be able to knock her out or will she just dance around to her amateur pedigree? Amanda doesn't have an amateur pedigree, but she's been in the as a pro for so
So
long.
long.
I
Yes.
mean, it's just going to come up to who has the better game plan that night, who's going to execute it perfectly. Like cannot miss a step. And whatever Katie or Amanda does wrong, the other is just going to have to really take advantage of that and just go for the kill. No pun
Exactly.
intended. Sorry.
Exactly. And yeah, I have it 50-50 skill wise and everything, but I honestly do believe Amanda's gonna stop her in the eighth round. Just personally, I, I
Really?
yeah, I just
As
think
in what, like a knockout? A
I think
knockout
stop.
or
No, I think they're gonna stop it. I don't think I don't think
Interesting.
because I don't
Okay.
think Katie's gonna quit. Katie's not gonna quit.
Hmm.
She's a dog. Amanda's a dog. Neither one of them are gonna ever quit or give up in the fight. But I just think Amanda has that much more power, and it's it reminds me of that fighter when they finally get that shot and that one moment to show how good they are. This is it for her.
Hmm.
Other like
It's
male
like that
fighters,
one song from. It's that one song from that Eminem song.
yeah,
You know that
your moment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's your one
yeah.
shot right now, and this is it. This is Amanda. We in boxing know her. She's a star in boxing to the boxing fans. Katie is a superstar at home. She is
Hmm.
a star in boxing, but she's had the amateur wins. She's had the medals, all these things. Amanda hasn't had that. Amanda's been one of the fighters carrying women's boxing for years, but she still
Uh-huh.
thought after, oh, it's Katie and Clarissa and all these other ladies, it's Amanda's there, but she's not the first one. This is her moment. This is where she gets to show she's enters into that greatest woman of all time conversation, and I think that's what she's gonna do.
Absolutely.
I think she's gonna stop her,
Absolutely. And
and that's it.
I can't wait because I mean, I think you're the only one that I've ever heard give an actual round of saying someone it's going to get stopped. I personally said it's going to go to the cards. I don't know who. I know very well that that Amanda's corner will not stop that fight.
Yeah,
He'll never throw in the towel.
yeah,
Katie doesn't seem like the type that she'll ever quit. But it's just, my God, you know what? The fans win in this one. The
yes,
fans win Saturday night, all from morning till night, because we have two great cards, and the
yeah.
fact that they scattered it,
Oh,
you know,
beautiful.
it's just, it's like Disneyland for me. I
Yes,
get so excited.
I know. I was sitting there and
So
I'm
yeah.
like, oh, thank you guys for doing this. I was like, and it's scattered. When I seen that it was scattered, I was like, oh, okay. Let me get all my stuff done early in the day, make something to eat for the rest of the evening, and just prop on that couch and enjoy it. Cause that's it.
Yeah.
That's how it's gonna be
Yeah.
tomorrow. I can't wait. Speaking
Yeah,
of
it's
the
gonna
rest
be
of that
fun. It's
card,
gonna be.
Katie and Amanda. That's
Hmm.
that's that's the main course. That's the main course. That's the main fight for that card. But you also mentioned Franchon, Cruz, Dezern, and
Yeah,
Seduce.
Saduru. She is
Seduce.
not one to look over.
Yeah,
She's a champion. She's got two belts. So Franchon, you know, this fight has been brewing for so long,
over a
and
year now.
you know, a, yeah, a lot of her fights have fallen out
Yeah,
because of due to pandemic and just like a lot of things. And when I interviewed her recently on our new podcast,
yeah,
Best Women's Boxing Show, period, I said the same thing, and I go, "Girl, I've interviewed you like two or three times for the same fight."
yeah,
And I go, "But you know what? God had a plan for you because you had to face all this adversity, and look at the plan He has for you now to be on the biggest stage,
yeah,
on the biggest card for women's boxing." And she's like, "Right?" So,
yeah,
but I think Franchon just has to do what she does, you know, stay focused. I think it will go to I think she'll win. She'll go to the decision. It will go to decision. I think it will be a split decision, personally. Because Elin, I think that's how you say her
yeah.
name, but
Ellen.
I just call her Stadirus.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's Ellen or Elin.
I,
She will,
yeah. I'm not sure
she's
either.
not gonna, I never heard anyone that people say it two different ways, so
Yeah,
I feel bad. Sorry, Stadirus. But Franchon is just going to have to fight, you know, put all the anger, all the stress, all everything that she's been going through for the past 2 years
yeah,
into this fight and make sure she wins decisively.
yeah.
But it's going to be a great fight.
And man, the more I think about it, I'm happy for Franchon. She's someone that I followed for years. She was one of my first guests that I ever had on here. So I tell
Hmm.
everybody I'm not biased. I'm never gonna pick anybody, but there are a handful of fighters that I'm always gonna root for. That I always wish the best for, and
Yeah.
she is one. Um, I love her. She's just amazing all the way around. She's just one of those people that you meet and it's like, you know what? I wish nothing but the best for you. So that's how I am with her.
Right?
So I
Right? It's just like she did everything
yes,
right. She's done everything right to get the belt, to
yeah,
do the training, and unfortunately, it's just like it's she. You know, it's the stars weren't aligned
yeah,
for her, at that moment. And then, but well, this is really the biggest stage
Yeah,
for her career at this moment, and I'm very, very, very excited for her, which is
yeah,
great. But yeah, so can't wait for that one.
yeah. And as you said, I looked her up because I had only seen one of the fights of Saduru's, and I was like, yeah, she's got some skill, but I don't know. And then I watched more, and I'm like, okay, she's got to be taken serious. She's not someone that's a walkover. So
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
legit.
There's a reason why she's
Yeah,
a champion.
yeah.
So,
So she's
you
legit.
know, just these champions, just because there's not that many women in the division,
Yep,
but when you're the reigning champion and the defending
yep,
champion, they have to come and take the belt away from
uh,
you. So, and Franchon knows she takes all her opponents very, very
yeah,
seriously because she wants to be undisputed, and she would be the very first in the division. And so, I mean, for a female to be undisputed, that's GOAT
yeah.
status. So,
Exactly. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I hope she wins, and I think she's gonna get it. I think she'll get unanimous, but I
Okay.
could see where someone gives the fight to Sidrus just because of her style as well. It's gonna be a tough fight.
Yeah, it just depends on the judges what
Yeah.
they're looking for, and we'll see. It's God, yeah, the whole card is going to be exciting. I
Yes.
forget, you know, it's sad to say because I'm so focused on the women. It's really gone under the radar. Jesse Vargas's fight, Liam
Yeah,
Smith.
and Liam Smith. Yep. And
Yeah, so but I mean that's a
that's a
good
good fight.
fight. It's a very good fight.
Yep.
I isn't that the co-main or
I
is
believe so. Yeah.
Franchon the co-main?
No, I believe
Why
that.
I see this.
I believe they're the co-main. I think Franchon is before her. I believe. I'm not 100% sure.
That should be the co-main. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Two undisputed fights, but whatever. It's
Yeah.
fine. They're on the card. I don't care.
Yeah, and the fighter that I'm really interested in seeing through the whole card, aside from the two undisputed fights, is Amo Williams because I believe the fight that he's in, that's a tough fight he's in, and I'm
Yeah.
really excited to see him because he's one of my favorite fighters to see in boxing prospect wise right now.
He's great. I remember interviewing him a couple years ago, and I think it was on the God. I forgot when, but he's such a good kid,
Yeah.
just like very, very level-headed, very smart in the ring.
Yes.
And I remember he had to take some time off due to mental health,
Yeah.
which is great. I think all fighters, everyone needs to just take a break from everything and just reevaluate what's your why.
Yeah.
That's all. Find your happiness again. And I'm glad to see him back in the ring. And he said it's true. I think, isn't it for a belt or a
I
vacant
think it's
title
like
or
a
something?
regional one of those regional belts.
A regional belt? Okay. Yeah, and for him to be stepping up to something like that, he needs
Yeah.
to prove to the world that he belongs on the stage. Because the last time, I think I believe I can't remember. Did he release sparring footage? I don't remember, and that's why
Yeah.
the whole thing that he had to take away. But
Yeah.
um, he's back, and he's been he's fully focused,
Yeah.
and he knows how important this fight is. And I did see some interviews with him that he said he cannot he's not taking for granted who's going
Yeah.
to be in front of him, and that he has to perform very well, especially when you're on a card of this
When you're
magnitude.
at
So
MSG, you gotta shine.
absolutely,
Yeah.
to know that Muhammad Ali was once
Yeah.
on this very ring, some
Exactly.
of the greats. Hmm.
Exactly. So, real quick, what's up, LW Boxing? Stopping by real quick to say hello. Um,
Hi.
so, before we get into Valdez and Stevenson, I want to ask you first, how did your guys' podcast come together? You and Jay. Jay, what's up, Jay? One of my best people to talk to. She's helped me out a lot, gives great advice. Nothing but love for her. So, how did that come to
Oh
happen?
yeah. So the it's weird. So Fight Stars was there was supposed to become so Fight Stars has a female tournament that's happening with under Rick Ramos. He's signing a bunch of female boxing and so there's going to be a tournament. So they brought me on and they asked about other women in sports. So they kind of tested us to see how we would work,
Mm-hmm.
just like our personalities, our dynamic. And Giandra and I have worked together since I've ever started, like 7 years ago. So the way we talk on our podcast is the way we normally
Mm-hmm.
talk in person. So it just happens to be we have cameras on us now. But the boss of the owner of Fight Stars he loved our podcast and he wanted to build something around women. So he asked what we thought about building a female podcast. It was driven by women. We talk mainly about women, but we also talk about men. We interview
Yeah.
men also. And surprisingly enough, when we've interviewed, say, David Benavides, Caleb Plant, Derek James, like a lot of the people, guys don't normally ask guy boxers, like, oh, what female fighters do you watch? Am I right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I do
We
ask,
can ask
but
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I ask all
okay.
the way.
But
But
not, but
yeah,
not, but
most of them
some
know.
people don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just want to ask about like the guys. It's like a boxing, boxing
Yeah.
talk with guys. So, and it's surprising that so many male fighters are very excited about women. They know a lot about certain people's careers
Yeah.
and how they want to see it, or they're like they're just as exciting as men. It's unfortunate that they don't get put on cards. They get
Yeah.
put on like the lower part of the
Yeah.
card. But so yeah, we John and I, we partnered up. So we partnered up with Fight Stars. So we own the show also, and so we're presented by Fight Stars, and they're just like it. We have creative control, so it's kind of like we've been doing this for as long as
Yeah.
we've been doing it, but now it's like we have full on creative control. We have a podcast studio here in Las Vegas. We're a Las Vegas based podcast, and we still do all this stuff. We have a producer, but we edit. We book our guests. We do everything. It's like just like what you do.
Yeah.
It's just we're still doing it. It's just now that she flies into Vegas and we do it, and we get to talk about all the things that John and I get to talk about, what we always talk about when we're texting each other or leaving voice notes or when we're at the fights talking to each other. But now we just get to do it for our own personal show.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Yeah. And for
Do you
those who
like
haven't
it?
watched, it's well, those who haven't watched, it's really good. It's informative because you guys really do go deep with what you ask. You guys don't hold
Yeah.
back. That's one of my favorite things. I tell everybody when I ask, I'll ask a fighter or whoever before, is there anything off limits? Because I'm gonna let you know I'm not gonna babysit a question. I'm not gonna avoid a
Yeah.
situation. I'm gonna ask you. But if you're not cool with it, let me know so I don't go that way. And most fighters appreciate when you tell them like that because there's some that'll come and ask
Yeah.
disrespectfully. I'm not gonna do it, but there's questions that people want to know, so we're gonna ask. But let me know if it's
Oh,
cool.
yeah. I mean, because we're not a live podcast, but we do ask them. I'm like, look, I want to know, is there anything off limits? And
Yeah,
sometimes if they say kids, I'm not one to talk about kids, but I'm like, oh, you have a new family, like
yeah,
especially because I'm a new mom, and also, and men find it easier to talk to women because it's just a different dynamic,
yeah,
and because we're very nurturing as a different, you can't really talk about, I don't know, like it's just different talking when a female talks to a male because we can really talk about family and mothers and girlfriends and how they deal with it all. But there are some times that if fighters don't want to say anything, they'll just
yeah,
say no comment. But we ask the questions, and they know that I don't care. I will ask. I go, look, it's public knowledge. I'm
yeah,
gonna ask it. You put it on your Instagram. You tweeted it. It's written.
yeah.
You don't have to answer it,
Exactly.
but
Yeah,
I'm gonna ask it.
yeah. And
Yeah, so
that's how I tell them too. Like you brought it up once, so of course I'm gonna ask you this question because you put it out there. Like we're not
yeah.
gonna just
And they
avoid
get
what you
mad
said.
sometimes,
Yeah.
right?
You called
I
that
was
dude
like,
a
don't
bitch,
put it
dude.
out
I'm not gonna
there.
avoid that. You said you would smack
Yeah,
him, so I'm gonna ask you about that. So yeah, no, I do the same thing.
yeah,
Um, but I will say with this show because you did mention how the guys talk because I am a father as well. I've actually asked like David Benavides. I asked him about his son.
yeah,
He actually opened up a lot when I brought that up to him. I've had Charles
yeah,
Conwell. Same thing when he brought up his daughter because his daughter's I believe almost 2 years old now. So I bring it up to him and it's like maybe it's just a difference in times too because I tell people you see the smile on these guys' face when you bring up their kids like
yeah.
it's
Because they're
something
not just
different.
a fighter.
Yes,
They're just not a fighter. They're a human being.
exactly. And that's
So,
what I want to bring to
and
people too is I want you guys to see every side of them, not just the guy that punches someone in the face for a living. I want you to see everything. So yeah,
yeah, And also with our podcast, we haven't dropped it yet, but we have these after dark episodes where really everything, everything and anything is asked. And I'm saying, I mean, at one point I was asking Jessica McCaskill, I go, "Are you sure I can ask anything?" She's like, "Uh-huh." We haven't dropped that yet because that's going to be like a paid subscription part
Oh wow.
because the shit that I was asking, I'm like, "Oh shoot, can I curse?" But the stuff I was asking, I was
Yes, you
like,
can.
I was so embarrassed to ask. And she's like, "You can ask." I'm like, "Are you sure?" And I mean, oh my God.
So
Oh my
so
God.
so are we talking After Dark like language wise or After Dark like X rated wise?
It could be all like
Okay.
the questions. Yeah, I get really, really. I mean, yeah. I mean, because we can curse on
Yeah.
the podcast on a normal podcast, but I mean, I'll the stuff I wouldn't normally ask on a normal podcast. I went there.
Oh, okay, okay.
We went there with Alicia Baumgardner. We went there with Maricela Cornejo. There and they were excited. I can't. I know I'm piquing your guys' interest. It's really cool, but we have some episodes already filmed. We have episodes with Rick Ramos on his own, Jessica McCaskill on her own, and Jessica and Rick together.
They're
Oh my
together,
God.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
that's
okay.
like one of the questions because and that was, they've never really publicly said it, but it's known. Well, it's
Yes.
not. It's like on
I've
Instagram.
seen
I'm like,
I've seen them.
I kind of put two and two together when I see a red heart. I'm like, so I asked it, and then I really went there with those questions.
Yeah, okay,
It was
okay.
fun.
Yeah. So you may have just piqued a whole level of male interest into that portion right now.
Yeah, and especially because we do a lot of the after dark episodes with females, so they get real. I mean, it's fun, and sometimes we have a little bit of vodka or
Oh no.
tequila, and,
You
and
know,
that's why they're called after dark
yeah.
specials.
I I will say this not After Dark, but I drank once with a fighter, just a little bit. And
Uh-huh.
drinking with this fighter, I will say he is an undefeated world champion right now. Well, he's not a world champion now, but he's been a world champion. I drank with him. He was sober,
Oh.
but his trainer was drinking. And after a few
Uh-huh.
shots, they said, "Hey, would you like to spar him?" Yeah,
What?
should have never
What?
ever done that.
Oh my God.
I avoided
Get
a
a
few
video.
punches. I landed a couple punches, and then he got serious. Yeah. Um,
That's so funny.
I was mad after because like I was leaking blood from my nose, and I was mad.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to
No,
laugh.
I laughed later because I'm sitting there because we went to go visit in LA with my fiance. Her aunt lives out there, so I was like, hey, drop me off. You go spend time. I'm gonna have fun. So we did everything, had fun, and I'm sitting there thinking, how am I going to explain that I got my ass kicked by a
Black
professional
eye.
fighter? Yeah, I was like, how am I gonna explain that I just got my ass kicked by this dude? Like, she's gonna ask me why would you do that, and I walked like
But
my
that's a
nose finally
great
stopped bleeding.
story.
Yeah, my nose stopped bleeding. Everything was cool. And then she's like, "Hey, what's that on your shirt?" And I had little droplets, and I told her, and she was like, "Why? Why would you do that?" I was like, oh. I was like, "Cause I could tell people I did it one day." I was like,
Right?
but
Yeah, and I think that's a great story, and I hope you have that on video. And then
no,
eventually you get to share who it was. Oh,
no.
oh. Well, okay, it's video, it's memories
Yeah,
for
some
your own
people know
self.
who it is, um,
You can
because they
write
were
it
there.
in your book one day.
Yeah, I will. It was funny. I will say he said, "Oh, you have a little bit of skills, okay." And then I caught him with the good one, and I just seen his whole face just okay, and I was like,
I want
"Shit."
to know who this is now.
I'll text you
Oh,
after and
that's
tell you who it
awesome.
was.
Okay, very
You'll
good.
laugh because I'll tell you we're about the same size height wise.
I don't know how tall you are.
I'm 6'1", almost 6'2".
Okay, you're gonna have to text it to me because
Yeah,
I'm like thinking, undefeated former world champion or
Yeah,
world champion?
undefeated
Okay.
former world champion.
I'll have to,
Yeah,
okay. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. But I'll tell you. I'll
Huh.
tell you. I'll tell you after. Cause,
Okay.
cause yeah, some people know and they laugh about it. They're like, "Why?" I'm like, "I don't know, man." So I was like,
You're like, why not?
yeah." I was like, he said, I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." Like one time, and I'll bring this up too. I almost fought Tito Ortiz, street fight wise though.
Oh God.
And after seeing him lose to Anderson Silva, I 100% think I could have taken him in a boxing match.
You could have probably
Yeah.
taken him.
After that, I was like, I know for a fact I would have whooped his ass boxing now.
What was it? He lost in like
Two
five
minutes,
seconds or
two
something like that.
minutes. I
Okay,
think like two
same
minutes.
thing.
Yeah, but yeah, I was like, after I was
Yeah,
like, oh, I
it
would have
was
kicked
so
his ass.
short.
Yeah, I was like, I would have whooped
It was
his
so short.
ass. So,
So you
so
never back down from a fight.
he's,
Whoever
well,
it is.
we were talking. It was just a joke that I had made. Someone took it too far. He got mad, and at that point, I was like, well, I'm not gonna back down. So then they're like, "Oh, just calm down, guys." So yeah, but
Oh my
I
God.
mean, I would have done it with gloves, not wrestle, because he probably would have whooped my ass there. But straight boxing, I'd have
That's
taken.
funny.
Yeah.
That's
So
so funny.
first, before I ask you again about the other card, how did you get started in boxing, and what was the fight that first the fight that made you fall in love with boxing? Second, what fight did you attend since you started covering boxing where you were like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I am here. Like, this is it.
So, I mean, when I lived in LA, because I just recently moved to Vegas with my family because I had had a baby, I used to own two gyms in Los Angeles. And one of them had, it wasn't a boxing gym per se, the first one. It had a boxing ring and MMA stuff. And then I sold it because my mom passed away. And then I opened another one, or I joined forces when I sold all my equipment with another gym. And crazy enough, that gym had Oscar Valdez
Oh
and
wow.
Abner Mares training out of it, and that was then we sold that gym because the city wanted to buy us out to expand the five freeway. We're like, sure, we'll take the money, and then I'm like, you want the freeway? Go
Yeah,
for it.
man.
So they needed our land. And then after that, it was just I've always loved boxing in the sense of that I trained. I used to train at this gym called Bomb Squad in Santa Monica. It's no longer there, but crazy enough, that gym had so many of the original UFC fighters.
Oh
These
yeah.
were like before they were big, like Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell. And I remember my trainer, I'm a Polly Malin, I'm Polly Mayorkin. I met him there and I was probably like 25, 26 at the time, somewhere around there. And I see these guys, they're barefoot. I'm like, why are they barefoot? Because I didn't like, I saw MMA, I
But
saw
you,
like
yeah.
jujitsu, but I didn't, UFC was very new. It was like UFC one, two, three. That's how new it
Oh
was.
wow. Okay.
And yeah, and then Bomb Squad closed, and then I trained at Wildcard, and then I just saw the progression of all these fighters coming up, and then just I'm like, I think I'd rather like to keep my shoes on
Yeah.
and stay above and like to punch. And I always did it just for to stay in shape. I used to train when I lived in New York. I trained at Gleason's. Crazy enough, Chocolatito's uncle was my trainer,
Oh wow. Okay.
and yeah, and I didn't know that. He's like, well, you never asked. How am I supposed to
Right.
know?
I'm just gonna ask somebody randomly. Do
Yeah,
you know Chocolatito? Because your
yeah,
name is Gonzalez.
yeah. And he was like, I'm from Nicaragua. I was like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, your son's name. He's also a boxer. His Instagram name is like Chocolatito JG or something. So I'm like, oh, that's so like random. And they're like, yeah, that's my cousin. I'm like, what? I'm like, what are you talking
This whole
about?
time.
And the whole time, and he was a former Nicaraguan Olympian, my old
Okay.
trainer, and but I've always stayed in boxing just to stay in shape. And when I started going into it, I think 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I fell into it because I moved back to LA. I'm like, I used to work in news, so I'm like, I wanted to go in news, but I wanted to do something in boxing, and then My sister used to be a strength and conditioning coach for Azat Hovhannisyan way
Okay.
back in the day.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know what?
Crazy
There's a
A.
Golden Boy club show at Belasco. And so I went, and the guy, Dominic Verdeen, he used to be doing the YouTube. I shadowed him, and then he's like, Cynthia, go ask a question. I'm like, what? I'm supposed to just shadow you. And he threw me in there. And at that time, I'm like, I didn't know what this scrum was because I've never seen people holding their phones. I'm like, it was very paparazzi style
Yeah.
because I'm used to watching. I'm working in news, so you have like professional cameras and stuff like that. And I just fell in love with it because I was able to just ask the questions off the cuff and get very like in front of the boxer's face, and then get to be standing with people that either love the same sport or have the same
Yeah.
interests. And then, but the first fight that I ever fell in love with was Mike Tyson versus Razor Reddick too,
Okay.
old school.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I think the one fight that I'm like, I know this is the right fight was watching, and it was actually my very first fight I ever worked was on the Gennady versus Jacobs card in New York. Was when I watched Chocolatito versus Sorungasai,
Yeah.
where he should have won.
Yeah. He was wrong.
I'm like, he should have
He was
won.
wrong.
And that's when I knew, I'm like, this is the right thing. I know I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And then that's it.
see, that's why I wanted to have you here so you could go in depth on how you started and all that. And that's a great story, especially the fight. For me, my fight, funny enough, was the Oscar Valdez fight. I had always done all my local shows
Which
around here.
one?
It was all the local shows
The
I
which
done. Oscar Valdez, Scott Quigg, In the Rain, in Carson. That
Oh
was
my
the.
God, the one in the rain,
Mm-hmm.
the best fight ever. I had my raincoat on. Everyone was like inside.
Yes.
I was sitting there. I brought a raincoat. I wore my rain boots. I came with Dino from Little Giant Boxing, and it was the most magical fight
Yeah.
in a monsoon.
Yeah.
It
I
was
I
the best.
I remember we got to LA that weekend because I used to work. Well, see, also real quick shout out. Where I started from was with Behind the Gloves, Michelle Joy Phelps. She gave me my
Oh, okay.
start, so that's where I was starting from. So that fight, I had asked if I could cover it. They said somebody had already asked. So I was like, oh, that's fine. Last minute, they're like, hey, can you go cover it? He's not gonna go. Do you want to go? Everything's already said. If you say yes, and I looked and I asked, and fiance said, let's go. So I went and we got to LA. Everything was cool. Next day, it's raining, and I'm like, is it really gonna rain the whole time?
Yeah, it was raining
Yeah,
sideways in every which way possible.
yeah. So we went to I want to say it was Bed Bath and Beyond, and I got me
Uh-huh.
a raincoat, everything. So I walk up, and this was the first part where I knew it was real. I walk up. There's people barbecuing outside still. They are cooking in the parking lot. And I walk up and I'm like, what the hell? And the guy goes, hey, who's going to win? And I was like, oh,
Sal? Was it Sal, Mr. Boxing
no,
Guru?
no. That's why I asked him years later. And he was like, no, that wasn't me. They were making tacos. But I walk up and I go, or they go, hey, who's going to win? And I go, oh, I'm just covering the fight. I was like, I'm a journalist. And he's like, oh, okay, well, here you go. Dude gives me a Corona and 3 tacos.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, so I ate the tacos, downed the beer, walked in, and I was feeling good. And then like I walked into the arena when the fight started, and the rain's coming down. And I remember I just stood at the top and I looked around and I looked down at the ring, and then I walked to the ring and I looked up and I was like, yeah, this is it. I was like, this is what I'm doing. Like
Ah,
I was like, that was my moment. And then I was watching the fight ringside when it first started, but then it was raining so hard I couldn't type up on my computer, so I had to go up to the booth. But still, it was
yeah.
just, I tell everybody that moment. It was like that's when I knew it was it. Because from then on,
Ah,
I've gone to fights in L.A., Vegas, up and down California. So I'm like, this is what I know. This is what I'm doing now. And now from those
that's
certain
awesome.
fights, people talk to me that I like. I was now I'll get messages from certain fighters. I'm like, oh hey, what's up? Oh hey man, how you doing? I'm like, oh, good, man. Like, I'm thinking they want something, and they're just like,
Ah,
oh, no, just checking in with you. And I'm like, oh, cool, bro. Well, what's up, man? So,
that's nice.
yeah, so, and
That's
that's
good stuff.
also the other moment when I realized how that I was doing something good was I had surgery on my hands 5 years ago now, and there was two fighters that were fighting that weekend. The couple days before I had my surgery, the day of their weigh-ins, they actually both texted me to see how I was doing because they knew I had surgery the day before,
Oh,
and I was like, oh
see,
crap, yeah, I
they're
was like,
so nice. Fighters are nice. I
yeah.
mean,
They were like, how you
when you
doing? I was
get
like,
to
how are
know
you
them,
doing?
yeah.
I'm like, you got to make weight, bro. Like, why are you worrying about me? They're like, no, I know you had surgery. I'm just checking in. I was like, oh, I'm good, bro. Like, thank you though. But yeah, no. So that was my moment, and I know a lot of people know this story that you mentioned MMA. A lot of people that know me know this story. I love both sports. I prefer boxing. I tried both sports. The reason I picked boxing, same one thing. I don't want to be running around barefoot everywhere. Second,
Yeah.
the first time I was in the gym, in the MMA gym, they asked me if I wanted to spar with somebody. I was like, sure, why not? It was just some dude. He was a little shorter than me. He kicked me the hardest I've ever been hit in my life, clear across my face. And I had a red
I'm
mark.
sorry.
I had a red mark on my face for about a week and a half. But it hurt, and then I was pissed because he didn't knock me out. I'm like, at least
Oh.
knock me out, dude. I don't want to feel this pain. So, yeah, that happened. I actually ended up choking him out because he was a little smaller.
Oh
So,
my God.
I had been watching a lot of UFC. So he was or I was throwing punches at him because I was mad, and he went to take me down, and I don't know how my arm got right under his neck. I did my stance and
Uh-huh.
I brought him down and lifted him up and choked him out. But I was mad later. I was like, dude, he kicked the shit out of me. I was like, what? I was like, you guys do this for fun? Like that hurt, man. And they were like, oh,
That's
that's
funny.
it,
You're
man.
like, never again.
Yeah. I was like, nah, I'm cool, bro. I was like, I respect you guys, but I never want to do that again. I was like, that shit hurt. So
When it's a bare foot
yeah,
hitting your face, that's so gross
yeah,
to me. And cauliflower ear,
yep.
ew. Oh,
That's why
gross.
he hit me, and I swear I thought his toe hit here, the rest of his foot and shin just bam, and I was like, oh no. Like I felt so gross. I
Sorry
was
to
like,
laugh.
ugh. Yeah, I was like, ugh. And then I was like, I'm standing. Oh, you should have knocked me out, dude. Like I was so
Oh
mad. I was like, you
God.
should have knocked me out. But that's what I love both sports. But yeah, boxing has my heart since I was a baby until where I'm at now. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's those are my reasons more. Um, so now the other card, Valdez and Stevenson, biggest
Yep.
fight at 130
Oh,
in years.
great unification.
Yep.
Great unification. Shakur has been calling out Valdez since he was a flyweight. I mean, I remember interviewing Shakur uh, during his pro debut,
Yep.
and this was I was new in boxing, and I remember Bob Arum. He called them the Three Amigos, Zurdo, oh God,
Magdaleno.
Oscar Valdez, and yes,
Yep.
they were all fighting on this card, and
Yep.
Shakur fought on the undercard.
Yeah.
And I just think back, wow, that's just like less than 6 years ago, and now they're going to be fighting each other, and Shakur is just it's such a good fight. It is
Yep.
really a good fight, but you know what? They just have to be both smart. Shakur is very, very crafty. He's very technical. His speed,
Yep.
his best performance against Jamel Herring, like people saw how fast he was. People saw the things that he did, and Jamel could not even touch him. Even Jamel was just like, "Oh my God,
Yep.
his jab came out of nowhere, and I tried to jab him, and then I could never find him." So Oscar's got to be very, very light on his feet. And credit to Oscar what he did to Miguel Burchelt.
Yep.
He knocked him out. He knocked him out so bad. He took
Cool.
a piece of his soul
Yeah.
that night,
Oh, he took his career
and
with that one.
he took his career because we saw sadly
Yep.
Burchelt fight again, and they stopped it. So I read that the Reynosos were the ones that pushed him to take this fight because get that upset because everyone says Shakur is going to win, but
Yep.
yeah, I get it. Everyone that I've interviewed, they said Shakur will win on points because he's just too fast. So I don't care who wins, honestly, because they're two great fighters. It's going to be the best man who wins in the ring that
Yeah,
night because I want to see will Valdez be able to neutralize his jab and neutralize his speed? Will he be able to catch up and cut off the ring, or will Shakur be able to to not get caught by
yeah,
Valdez? Because I know Valdez is going to go looking for the overhand right,
yeah.
or he's going to look out for that knockout power. But I think it's styles makes fights, and this
Yeah.
is a one damn good one.
Yeah, yeah, and I I started thinking about this fight. Obviously, another fighter that I will always root for is Jamel Herring. So Shakur beating him hurt a little bit, but
I
as
know, it's hard.
yeah, as soon as it ended, I was like, okay, him and Oscar, that's the fight now. Like that's who has the fight.
That's
That's
the
who it's got to
fight.
be. So same thing with Shakur. He's amazing. He's got defense. He's showed he could be offensive. He showed his skill. Oscar, we've
Yeah.
seen what he could do when he's on his night. What he did to Burchelt that night, he was on. He knew his plan. He knew what he was going in there to do, and he executed everything to perfection until he got that knockout. Now everything that happened after with Conceição and the testing and everything, we all
Yeah.
know. We know the situation, but Shakur is the favorite for a reason. I agree.
Yep.
I do think if you were to ask me now, I still say Shakur is probably the favorite, and I think he's going to win. My biggest question: yes, can Oscar catch him? Can he hit him? Will Shakur be able to do that? If Oscar does hit him, though, is Shakur gonna show that he has a chin? Because when he got hit by Nekatila, he said himself,
Hmm.
"I didn't like it. I don't like getting hit like that." So it obviously had to have, at the very least, maybe rattled him, not stun him or anything, but rattled him.
Okay. Okay, but think about this. So you have his bestie, Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford hits pretty fucking hard.
Yeah,
So I would assume, you know what? I know that it's not to get hit is hit and not to get hit.
yeah,
I always think, and even this goes with Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. When you're in sparring, you're going to get
yeah,
hit. You have to get hit. So we have to see, do you have a chin?
yeah,
So I'm assuming whoever he sparred, and I'm assuming I would think maybe Terrence Crawford helped him be like, okay, kind of clock me on the chin. I got to see if I have a chin.
yeah,
I Am I right? I don't know. Am I the
yeah.
only one that thinks that?
No, they do,
So I
but
don't know.
they wear the guard
Yeah, they wear the
and the
headgear.
big gloves. That's the biggest
Yeah,
difference.
yeah.
They're wearing.
But you know what? Okay, so Shakur is a silver medalist.
Yep.
He's an Olympian, so he knows many styles.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
I think
That's
you make
what makes
it's
it.
a very valid
Yeah.
point.
That's what makes it exciting though. Is first, is Oscar going to catch him, and if he does, how does Shakur respond? But then also, how is Oscar going to respond to a fighter who is maybe two or three times what Conceição was, and Conceição gave him problems with just boxing. So
Yeah. I mean, even Oscar said I don't want him to be on his bike and running.
uh,
And we see that when you're a very good technician in the ring, that you have a piston jab
yep,
and you can fire off as many combinations and jabs and keeping them at bay, and you don't get hit. Yeah, I get that's considered running in the ring, kind of like what's his name? The one that we saw that was like in Dongo. Was it no, not
no,
no? Was it no, not in the one that oh god, they went 12 rounds and I think they threw like three punches each. The Filipino guy on Cajas
Rigondeaux.
and Jurgendal. There
Yeah,
you go. Oh my god, it's kind of like that, but I don't want it to be like that.
yeah. I don't. I don't think it will
I
be.
want to see some people get hit,
Yeah, I don't
but
think it
you know
will
what
be
I mean.
because Shakur's trying to make a point and he wants to be a star. He knows you can't be a star unless you do something star worthy. So if you're just gonna go out there and
Yeah,
one two jab and move, no one's gonna. They'll say, yeah, you won, but no one's gonna be like, yeah, I can't wait to see him again. Now, if he beats up Oscar or stops Oscar or something of that nature, then people want to see it. So he's not gonna
yeah,
risk a maybe going toe to toe, but he's got to risk a little getting inside so he could make a statement because no one's gonna care.
And I think Shakur is really good at that
Yep.
because I think his speed is
Yeah.
top notch. So for him
He
to get in and out of the
yeah.
pocket, Oscar is going to have to really kill his rhythm because what beats speed? Timing.
Timing. Yep.
And what beats power? Timing.
Yep.
So,
And that's
yeah.
the thing is he's Oscar has a killer left hook. So say Shakur's going to his right. If Oscar can predict when Shakur's going to move the opposite way and he catches him with that left hook, that could be the one right there. So it just I want to see can Shakur take that punch if it does land and how does he respond? But then also Shakur pointed out himself how is Oscar going to deal with not being able to catch him, not being able to let off the combinations?
Yeah.
Because he's going to get frustrated, I believe. He's going to get frustrated because he got frustrated in his last
Oh,
fight.
yeah.
So I want to see how he
And
responds.
that's why this is going to be a great fight. And
Yep.
that's why the fans win because we get to watch it after
Yes.
After the Katie Taylor versus Amanda Strong. Thank
Ex-
you, DAZN, and thank you, ESPN,
yes.
for making this happen for all of us boxing fans. We're so
Exactly.
excited.
I can't wait for them. Both great fights.
Oh, and this is even better. They're not pay per view.
Yup. They're free. They're
I
free.
mean, we still pay for it, but it's not pay per view, which
Yeah.
is even better. So I think it's a great weekend
Yeah.
of boxing, and we can't wait to see who's going to be crowned undisputed queen and the king of the 130
Yeah.
division. Like
Exactly.
who? Not the king, but the the top dog
No,
of
that'll
these
be top
two.
dog
That
because I mean it'll have three belts: the ring and
yeah.
WBC and WBO. So that'll be
Yeah,
the man at one
and
thirty.
for the ring belt, for people don't realize the ring belt, it's not whoever has the most belts
Uh,
gets to fight for the belt. It's the top two in the
yeah,
division. So since I work for Ring, everyone gets crazy. I'm like, dude, there's a reason why we're not sanctioned. They don't pay a sanctioning fee to Ring magazine. It's a beautiful belt awarded to the top two in the division who are the best,
yeah,
who get to fight for it. So people always ask me, well, why doesn't so and so fight? I'm like, he's like number 15.
yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
that's the belt right there.
yeah. So, yeah, it's very exciting. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm
it's a,
excited. See, you got me happy. I could never do this interview at home because my baby would be like,
so yeah.
because I'd be
See,
screaming.
yeah, and that's why I mean I had to get you on. I mean, I know we talked. I think it was a few weeks about it before, and now I finally got you on,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to get you
Thank
on.
you. I appreciate it.
Like I said, I love your guys' show. It's a great show. You guys do good work, and then yeah, I've been following you. I want to say for at least probably about 5 or 6 years now. When I first started
Oh,
seeing
thank
you on there.
you.
Um, so yeah, I'm. It's an honor to have you on. First off, uh,
Thank you.
I just started my
Thank
own
you. I'm
channel.
so happy. I'm so excited you invited me on. I
Oh,
just love
thank you.
talk boxing.
Me too. That's one of my favorite things. So, but yesterday it was funny. I had my daughter's back to school night open house, and I was walking through talking to their teacher and everything. First off, I didn't know back to school nights were like this. They had a taco truck, a pizza truck, Dippin' Dots, and another frozen ice cream thing. And and I
Ooh,
was
that
like,
sounds
when?
fun. I want
Yeah,
to go to those.
I was like, when did this start? Like, oh, and they had the the fruit covered chilies, so the strawberries, mango, and all that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I'm like, when did they start doing these things? I was like, okay, I was like, let's go down there. So there was two people.
That's
One guy
fun.
had a Tank Davis shirt on, and I looked at him and I was like, Tank, and he's like, huh? And I'm like, oh, Tank Davis, your shirt, and he was like, oh yeah, yeah, and I was like, okay, he doesn't watch boxing. He just liked the shirt or someone gave it for him. Then there's another guy who had on a Canelo hat, and I just told him in Spanish, so it was like Canelo, and he's like, oh, best in the world, and I go, oh, and I asked him in Spanish, and he started talking to me about what he watched growing up, and then he asked me what I did, and it was funny because I was like, oh yeah, I was like, I actually cover boxing, and I showed him a couple pictures of fighters that I've talked to or hung out with, and he was like, oh, you really do that? I was like, oh yeah, I was like, I really cover boxing. He was like, oh wow, so I mean, we probably talked like 10, 15 minutes just about boxing nonstop, but it's funny because wherever we'll go, if someone brings it up, I'm just like, um,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
what?
I'm like, excuse me, you're wrong. So Yeah, but
Right?
yeah.
When they start trying to
Oh,
throw off this, then I'm like, and especially I'm a female, I'm like, oh, you don't even
yep.
know. You're so wrong.
Yes. Yeah, I've had. There was one fight we're at where the people behind me were talking, and the guy's like, "Yeah, you remember James Toney when he knocked out Bernard Hopkins?" I was like, "Excuse me." I was like,
No.
"That never happened. What the?" I was like,
I
"Dude."
know, right?
Yeah, and I'm just like, "Oh God, bro." I was like, just mind your business. And but it's always people always tell me that. Why do you get irritated? I'm like, because I cover the sport and I know these guys, so I get really annoyed when people say something stupid like that. It's like, no, they never fought.
Funny.
They never got
That's
knocked
so
out.
funny.
so so again,
Oh,
thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, we're able to speak more, and one of these fights we're able to meet up as well.
I know, absolutely. Just thank you for inviting me and thank you for supporting us. And
Always
I
will.
can't wait. We can't, Giandra and I can't wait for you guys to see what we have, like the ideas that we have, the things that we're going to be doing, the interviews that we've already have in the can. We just interviewed Derek James. That was good. I mean, he is the most non-boxing boxing trainer we've ever interviewed in our lives. And I'm like, it's just the stuff he said. We're like, what? What did
Yeah,
he do? What? So it's really fascinating the things that we're able to uncover from people because we're very unconventional.
yeah.
We ask the questions, and I'm like, whatever. But I'm really excited for you guys, and I'm excited to see your growth because I've seen you before, and I've seen you like on during pandemic. I remember all that, and I think you had a Grogu sitting on your. Is that Grogu sitting there? Yeah, you do have Grogu.
Yep, I got this
I have
one.
one too.
And then actually, I got this one today from work because of good work that I do.
Oh, ooh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
So yeah,
I'm
I always
glad.
have these.
Yeah, that's how.
I have so many of these. I have Avenger stuff. My fiance has all her Harry Potter stuff, so we got those. I got a wall right here. If
Oh,
I could
like
turn the camera, I would
that.
show. But
Okay.
I have a whole wall right here of all of them that we have. I always do that, and that's funny because I'll post these up, and sometimes I think I had a Blair Cobbs on, and he was
Yeah.
like, "Is that Grogu? Is that is that Groot?" And we just started talking about that, and we just went
Yeah.
on a whole talk about that later. And it's funny because I'll post random things up, and there'll be people, oh, like Cynthia Conte when I had her on, she's like, "Oh, you're gonna wear your Raider hat today? Okay, I see how it is." And I'm like, so it's I always do that, and I'm like I said, I'm trying to grow it. It's slowly but surely getting there. Hopefully, soon I'm able to get to where I want, or at least close to it.
You know what? Just keep doing what you're doing because people notice and people watch. And trust me, everyone notices things. Like everyone starts at the bottom.
Yep.
Everyone. I don't care who they are. And you just keep grinding and
Yeah.
you're doing what you love. And that's all that matters.
Exactly.
Like you get to wake up and say, I'm gonna do what I
Yeah.
fucking love to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I think
So
sometimes I'm like, sometimes I still get shocked. I'll get a text message and I'm like, all right, this is the other funniest story right here. You're gonna love this one. If you thought those other ones were funny, this one's great. So my fiance used to work at Walmart.
uh-huh.
Sitting, and I went to pick her up one day. We're outside. She's talking to her coworker, and I gave her my phone because she wanted to show her coworker something that we had bought. So I'm walking to the car, and the phone goes off. I could hear it, and my fiance looks, and she goes, "Hey, Jamel's texting you." And I go, "What did he say?" And she goes, "Oh, to give him a call later tonight or whatever." And I was like, oh, "Okay, cool, I will." And her friend goes, "Who's Jamel?" And she goes, "Oh, he's a professional boxer, world champion. They're really good friends." And her friend goes, "Huh? My boyfriend gets text messages from his brother who works at McDonald's. You get text messages from a millionaire." She goes, "You get text messages from a millionaire." Wow. I just
Yeah,
started. I like tried not to laugh,
right?
but I thought about it later. I was like, I really, yeah, like I talk to these guys, and I don't think
We're
about it like
blessed.
that.
It's
Yeah,
Yeah, we're very, very blessed
yeah,
to get to do what we love, to be able to talk to people about their careers,
Yeah,
and they're just normal people like you and I.
exactly. Yeah, and that's why I really love it, because I'm just like, people see them and they're like, "Oh my god!" And I'm like, "Dude, I just got off the phone with this person," or "Yeah, we talk all the time," and
Right?
but I don't think about it that way, and that's when I really think about it. Sometimes I'm like, "No, you know what? I am lucky. I'm blessed. I may not
Yeah.
have it where I want, but I know people now. I mean, I could literally send a text to probably anybody from any of the promotions now, and they'll tell me, oh yeah, this is what's gonna happen," and I'm like, some people don't have that yet, and they might have a bigger channel than me, but I could text somebody from Top Rank, from Golden Boy, from PBC,
Yeah.
these promotions, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I got you. Let me set something up," and I'm like, "Cool, thank you, like appreciate it." So, I mean, hey, it starts
That's
somewhere.
awesome.
Yeah,
Well, I'm happy for you, and just keep grinding because people notice.
I will,
So,
and
all right, Mike, I gotta go because
thank
my
you.
baby and I gotta eat. I got my golden hour. I gotta get that protein in me. My protein shake. My trainer kicked my ass today. Good. I can't walk.
Yeah, I hit the gym later tonight after a few things, and I go in tonight. So yeah, I feel you. So
Good.
again, thank
Well,
you.
thank you for inviting me,
Let
and I
everybody
can't
know where
wait
to
to see
follow
both
you.
of our predictions.
Yep.
You can follow me on Twitter at Cynthia_Conte. My Instagram at the Real Fight Girl, and our new boxing podcast. Well, shit, it's
The
at
best women's boxing
best
show,
because there's
period.
show period
Yes.
period.
So,
And can't wait. We're gonna be dropping a lot of new footage. We've got some. It's just we got to space it all out, but
uh,
it's all coming, and we're still interviewing some crazy ones coming up soon.
yep. So go ahead and follow
Yeah.
them. Follow her. Follow everything she does. She does a great job. For everybody, I'll be
Thank
back
you.
in half an hour. I got Tito Mercado on. And thank you guys for tuning
Oh,
in
I like
today.
him.
Yep. So he'll be on
Oh,
in a
yeah,
little
he's a
bit.
good kid.
Yep. So he'll be on in a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you guys for tuning in. See you guys soon. Have a great rest
Thank
of your evening,
you.
and I'll text you who that fighter was.
Perfect. Thanks,
All right.
guys. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.